Radio Show.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the 25th Hour Radio Show here on Monster Radio, AM 1150. On the phone with me today is a Royce Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt professor and the senior supervising instructor at Three Rivers Martial Arts Academy in Paducah, Kentucky, Mr. Eli Knight. Eli, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show.
Thanks for having me, Robert. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man, no problem. Eli, I guess the proper place to begin here is to get some background information about you, a little history lesson for the listeners out there. Tell us how you initially got involved in martial arts, and what did you first start off with?
Oh, man. Well, about 500 years ago, well, maybe not that long, but I guess about 25 years ago or so, when I was a teenager, I started to train. All that was really around the area that I lived in was Taekwondo and karate, and I started with some friends in Taekwondo, and I did that for a couple of years, and I really loved it. I always loved martial arts growing up. I even, did as a little kid for a little while, but once I got into Taekwondo, I started to kind of explore other things. I always tell people that Taekwondo is a good gateway drug into martial arts. So then, I met up with Jason Hawkins a few years into that, and he was doing jiu-jitsu. That's all I really knew that he was doing at the time, but he was really a big explorer into martial arts, and he was traveling around, going to all kinds of different seminars, training with different individuals. And so, going to train jiu-jitsu with him wasn't just jiu-jitsu. It was Filipino martial arts, it was Indonesian martial arts, it was judo, it was other traditional styles and other kind of exotic styles. Then, of course, whenever around 1993 or 1994 happened, that kind of changed the face of martial arts for the world, especially for the United States, for, the rest of us. And that was, of course, the UFC, and Royce Gracie came out and kind of showed the world what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu specifically, was all about. And since we were, quote unquote jiu-jitsu practitioners ourselves at the time, we were like, wow, man, this is jiu-jitsu. Okay, well, this is a little different than what we're doing here. So we started tracking him down and stalking Royce Gracie all over the nation, wherever we could find him, and training with him, and the rest is kind of history. I mean, we kept on doing that for years and years, and we've been doing that for a couple decades plus now.
So what makes Gracie Jiu-Jitsu different from other martial arts? For the people out there listening who might not be aware of the UFC, who might not know how it originated within the United States.
I didn't realize this. I mean, because this is a conversation that I've had recently, working in a broader community of martial arts. It was strange to me. I thought that after the UFC, I guess because of my close network of people, I thought that, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu just kind of exploded, and everybody knew about it, and everybody, wanted to be part of that, or at least integrate it in their own system. But it's still amazing to me of the people in martial arts that aren't aware of what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is about, or they have preconceived notions or misinformed notions about what it is. So I guess the best way I could really explain, and I'll make a small distinction between Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't make that distinction too much myself, because when I learned Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it was synonymous with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. These days, people tend to say BJJ in terms of just the sport or the competition aspect of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which, there's this kind of argument between the self-defense and the sportive aspect of it. But that's a little bit more of a niche argument. So I guess that to really kind of give the Cliff's Notes version about what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is about and what makes it unique is the training method, really, more than anything. I mean, it's the techniques are extremely efficient. It's all about energy efficiency. It's about, expending the least amount of energy and getting the most return back on it. It's about control. It's about putting the fight, controlling the distance and the tempo, the position of the fight to maintain ultimate control over the person. So it's based on a system of leverage and efficiency. It is a complete martial art. It's famous for its ground fighting aspect, because that's one of the parts that really stood out to everyone initially, and still stands out probably more than anything. But it is a complete martial art, because after all, it is jiu-jitsu. It's just a modified or modifiable form of jiu-jitsu, thanks to Carlos and Elio Gracie. And um, so, by saying it's a complete martial art, in my opinion, it manages every range of the fight. It has an answer from the striking long distance range. It has an answer from the close range or clinch range of the fight, standing. It has takedowns and throws. It has ground positioning, and it has submissions. And that's kind of the ultimate goal, is that we want to look for the submission, or the ultimate position that you can hold someone in, where they can no longer continue to fight out of risk of injury or because of injury.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say most people, during the early 90s, looking to learn a martial art, probably expected to walk into, I don't know, a dojo, meet a guy with a black belt, see all his trophies on the wall, and think to themselves, this guy right here knows his stuff. The thing is, when you and the others started teaching, you weren't black belts, right? 2 questions here. How did you know you were proficient enough to teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? And did you ever, from a prospective student's point of view, hear the thing like, who are these imposters? They're not even black belts.
Yeah. Okay. So there's kind of 2 sides to this equation. And first of all, like when we started to I don't know if what you would call what we were doing with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in the day, teaching, it just kind of naturally progressed into that. We were sharing. We had some information. We kept gathering more information, and then we kept sharing it with people who wanted to come and learn from us. That's kind of been the slow progression of three rivers martial arts in general. It hasn't ever been like, hey, we're the best, come learn from us. It's just been kind of like, hey, we've got some good info over here, and we've learned from the best sources in the world. And we've been doing it so long that we're pretty good at communicating this information. And so if you're interested, then come hang out with us and learn from us. We never really had a very egotistical approach to martial arts, and because we saw the folly of that. And that was one of the great things about Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu. The way that it was spread was through proving it. That was the Gracie family kind of thing. It's like, if your martial arts are better than ours, then don't tell us about it. Come show us. They had an open challenge for any style, any practitioner to come and fight one of their representatives. And I mean, if you have a product, the best way to do it is, it's the Pepsi challenge, put yours against ours. And when you're talking about martial arts, well, really the only way to do that is through fighting, so Jorge and Gracie kind of led the charge there in the United States for the most part, and then, brought other relatives over with him, and other relatives in the Gracie family and other practitioners were already doing this in the United States too. And he would go into, karate, taekwondo, kickboxing, whatever popular martial art, whatever big school or academy was around, he would go in there and say, hey, I think that I've got something here that your style is at least missing, that I think that you would benefit from incorporating. And it wasn't that he walked in there with a lot of bravado all the time and threw down his hat and said, I'm going to fight you. It was like, I'm willing to put my style up against yours. Are you willing to do that? And a lot of people were like, no, get out, because they were, that's a scary proposition, but the ones who were quickly saw that, not only could Gracie Jiu-Jitsu like nullify their style, but he did it oftentimes in a way that didn't inflict much damage to the other person. So now when you have a style like typical styles at the time that were based on punching and kicking and whatever other kind of striking, you have to do enough damage to incapacitate your opponent. With Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, the way that you do close the distance, you can get the fight into an uncomfortable position for the other person and force them into a place where they can no longer fight, and then they have to give up. I mean, that's why it's called, the gentle art. That's why it literally translates as the gentle art, because, it's not something where you have to bash somebody into submission.
Now, real quick, along the same lines here, do you find people still to this day who quote unquote teach Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that aren't qualified?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's so popular. And I mean, it's and that's a really unfortunate thing. There's people, there's people in town here right now that are like that. And they advertise, there's a some karate places that on their door they say, we teach whatever buzzword martial art is at the time, insert it here. It's like they have jiu-jitsu on their door, that they teach jiu-jitsu, or that they teach Krav Maga, or that they teach this art, whatever it is, because it's a popular name, and they aren't qualified to. But everybody's got YouTube, so they can look up some techniques. And but then whenever they're pressed about it and you actually ask them, oh, so where's your where does your instruction come from, or who's your instructor here, what's the lineage that you guys follow? Well, we don't really teach it very in depth. It's just that we incorporate it into our self-defense classes or whatever. So yeah, it is. And you can look up some videos right now of fake black belts or fake jiu-jitsu teachers being exposed. And it's really an unfortunate thing, man, because we're not the dojo storm type of people around here. So, and we kind of let people do what they want, and then the truth tends to come out in the wash. But there are plenty of people who will take great offense to that, and they'll come there and say, oh, okay, so you teach Gracie, you teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well, why don't you show me what it looks like here? Let's fight right now, and then you can show me if you're qualified to teach this. So it's really kind of playing with fire. It's not like you mentioned back in kind of the several decades ago, you could walk into martial arts schools, and if the guy had a black belt on and he had some trophies and he had a certificate hanging on the wall, you kind of didn't question that, because there's this mystique about it. There was this movie, this kung fu flick mystique about, ooh, this is the master, and you don't challenge his authority, you just listen. And if he tells you that you can do this, like spinning back flipping karate chop, and it's going to knock the person out, then you need to believe him. Now the bar is the standard is much higher now, because martial arts are more based on prove it. It's performance based. So
now it's interesting you say that. My next question here, because the art of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is so real, there is a lot of physical contact involved. In fighting, that's natural, but when a student first starts training, that could feel quite awkward. Is it like a person is either made for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or they aren't, or is everyone cut out for this and you kind of help them through that awkward stage if they feel that way?
Yeah, I mean that's natural. I think whenever you're starting anything new, honestly, whenever you expose yourself to a foreign environment and you're in a new atmosphere, you're around strange faces, you're going to be uncomfortable in your own skin, and it takes a little while to acclimate to that. And some people are going to have a harder time than others acclimating to that kind of situation. Some people are going to be a little more socially awkward or a little bit more uncomfortable in those kind of settings, and with the amount of contact too. But I mean, it's one of those things that we try to be very gradual. We don't try to throw anybody to the wolves. We're not I don't believe in bringing in a brand new student and on his first class or 10 forcing him or her to jump in and wrestle around on the ground with somebody they don't even know. I want people to be comfortable, because that's what's going to really ensure the longevity of their training. And I mean, if you scare people off, man, those people are going to walk away without having experienced something that could potentially save their life one day, or at least protect them in a violent confrontation. So our honest goal, I think that should be the goal of any martial arts instructor or teacher, other than to spread a beautiful art that has the potential to change your life through just the practice of it, is, first and foremost should be to teach people something that could protect them and help them out in a fight. If God forbid they ever get into a physical conflict or they're ever attacked or anything like that, they need a set of skills that are going to help them out to protect them. So you have to be kind of gradual with that. You can't just throw somebody in and be like, hey, it's a rough world out there, you got to get in here and get rough with it and everything. It's it's like boiling a frog, man. You put the frog in some nice cool water and stick it on the stove and gradually heat it up. The frog's going to stay in there and boil itself. You throw the frog in the boiling water, he's going to jump right out. So
man, I kind of got off subject there for a second. I want to bring it back in and talk about you.
Yeah.
Now, you are a black belt. Congratulations on that, by the way, by earning that.
Thank you.
Altogether, how long did it take you to achieve that goal? And in your own words, what was it like that moment, Royce finally placed that belt around your waist?
Oh, man. that was easily in the top 5 best days of my life. I mean, right up there with my daughter being born. But it was because it was such a long kind of journey for that. It took at best estimation for me and several of the other guys that were with me in that moment, including Jason Hawkins and some of my other really good friends. Um, it took us about 16 years, about 15, 16 years to do that. And that was for various reasons, but honestly, I don't think I've gone more than and there's only been a handful of times that this has happened over those 16 years. I don't think I've gone more than 2 weeks without training. Most of the time I train, um, teaching aside, I train probably 3 to 4 days a week for my own personal training. Now, if you don't include, every time that I teach, which I teach almost every day, that's partly training for me too, because I get to, train with my students while I'm teaching them. But aside from that, though, yeah, it's about 16 years, and that was in 2011. So that was about 6 years ago now. So it's a couple years after getting our black belts. The way that Hoist does the graduation is you get a white sleeve, and then you graduate to your next color of sleeve on that belt. The tradition was you get a white sleeve on your black belt. That means you're a black belt competitor or fighter, not necessarily a teacher. When you get what was the red sleeve, which has since changed to a blue sleeve, which is a whole different conversation. But once you get that next sleeve, then you are considered a teacher. When you get the white bars above and below that sleeve, then you're considered a professor. And that happened, I think, 2 years ago. So
Now, since you have achieved that status as a black belt, and has that changed your way of training in any form or fashion? I mean, are you just as hungry to learn as maybe you were when you first started?
oh man, hungrier. It's in some ways it's a more daunting of a task. I mean, it's kind of nice whenever you go through the different belts, and different belts kind of mean different things. But when you begin, you're very eager to learn everything and to get out there and do it all, and all through the belts. There's different levels of complacency I see people reach and everything, but I think it's a huge tragedy. And it doesn't happen very often, especially in jiu-jitsu, that you reach brown and black belt and you start to get complacent. I see that in other martial arts because it's not as performance based. But man, now it's like, and the learning curve is so much faster because we have so much more knowledge and we're better at teaching it. Then we get a guy in, and in 6 months he's a handful. I mean, if he comes in with a set of physical attributes that are superior to ours, and then we can give him some technique behind that, man, he's already a handful in 6 months to a year. So we've got to stay sharp. We've got to keep training all the time, because we can't we can't be the pot belly instructor sitting over in the corner pointing at people and telling them how to do things. We've got to get out there on the mats, and we've got to be able to show them and let the people feel what this is about. So yeah, man, I'm very hungry, and I'm very eager to not only keep sharpening myself, but to get better at teaching this stuff, man. I want to disseminate the information as best I can, because I think it has the ability to change lives, because it changed mine.
Now, since you have achieved your black belt, you've caught the attention of a few companies, Funker Martial Arts and De Firma Kimonos. How are you involved with these two companies?
Oh man, it's I'd like to say that I was I had such a popular reputation, and I was so sought after that they came after me and everything like that. But it was nothing like that, man. It was just friends. I mean, it was like back in about 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I contacted De Firma because I wanted to get a custom gi made, and I had heard from a friend of a friend that they were a good company, and they were kind of a small company starting out, and at the time still, and I contacted them. I talked to Ricardo, who's the president of the company, and it's his thing, and he's still, man, that guy is still on every single order. He oversees every single detail of that company, and the level of just courtesy and professionalism, I mean, he was just it was just really nice to deal with somebody like that. It wasn't, I didn't feel like another number, and so I just I kept doing business with him. When I got my custom kimono, I did a video, talking about how much I loved it. And, he called me back and thanked me, and we just developed a friendship, and he offered to, sponsor me. And I'm like, man, honestly, I don't compete that terribly often. Are you sure you want to sponsor somebody like me? He's like, man, you're everything that we want in a representative of the company, you know? So I was like, dude, I'm all over it then. Thank you. Uh, as far as, you know, so Ricardo and I are still friends to this day, very, very good friends. As far as Funker goes, I had a good friend that got involved with Funker Tactical, who had been big fans of their work for years, and he loved the company so much that he went and just like moved up to Canada to you know, like basically kind of start working with these guys. And they were really starting. Funker Tactical had already done some martial arts things, some empty hand things, you know, not just gun and gear and tactical training, but they had started this martial arts kind of offshoot, and they really wanted to develop the Funker martial arts brand. So you know, I was, you know, stayed in contact with my buddy, and he was like, man, I've been telling them, if you want to get into martial arts area, or, you know, they're doing a lot of good things, but they're not even looking at jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, how do you do anything martial arts related anymore and not at least address jiu-jitsu? So, you know, I got in contact with them too, and eventually, you know, I went up there and I did some filming with them, and developed a good friend with GN, with Paulo Rubio, who is you know, basically Mr. Funker himself. And so they gave me a lot of good opportunities. JD Caputo was the one that got me into the company for the most part. And, you know, I made some good friendships out of that company too, with Mr. Ryan Hoover and with Jared Wihongi, with Buck Grant, who's a new member to the team. And it's really awesome because we have such a good team right now that is filled with some like-minded individuals of just, you know, cutting away the crap from a lot of martial arts. So the stuff that I still can't believe is floating around, like no touch knockouts and pressure point things, you know, and it's just scary stuff that if people go and train this and they get into a fight and try to use it, are going to get them killed. And that's what we're just dead set against. So,
you know, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're the senior supervising instructor at Three Rivers Martial Arts Academy in Paducah, Kentucky. Now, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu isn't the only thing you guys got going on there, right? You have a little bit of something for all age groups and preferences, correct?
Yeah, for sure. We do group and private lessons. We do kids and adults. You know, we got great kids programs, and you know, with the jiu-jitsu program is of course our biggest program. Most of our students do that. And there are others that don't train the jiu-jitsu, that do other arts, and then there's some that cross-train. We do Filipino martial arts here. We do Indonesian silat here. We do judo, and to different capacities, like private lesson capacities. We do Muay Thai kickboxing, and you know, just some different martial concepts is what we try to give the umbrella term to the other things that aren't our primary classes. But yeah, we've got a lot of stuff for everybody here.
Now, has Three Rivers grown so much that being a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu instructor is your full-time job now? You might have mentioned that earlier, but
Yeah, it is. I started doing this more full-time. I started doing this full-time before I even had my black belt, because, you know, we had grown, and maybe not quite enough to support me as a full-time job whenever I first started doing it. But, you know, I saw the potential. We all saw the potential that, you know, every time we put more into it, we got more back. And that tends to happen whenever you have, for lack of a better term, I don't like calling it a business, but, you know, we have a good business and a good business model just based on, you know, honesty and integrity, and we believe in what we do, and we think we're pretty good at it. And the better we get, the more people we start to see walking through the doors. So
what about outside of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? How do you spend your downtime, man? You got any hobbies or anything like that?
No. That's my hobby is jiu-jitsu. My vocation and my avocation is training. You know, I've started getting more since I've been with Funker. You know, I do some video work with them. It's lent itself into, you know, landing more seminars, and so I've been traveling a little bit more, doing seminars and different things like that. So it keeps me pretty busy, man. I mean, my all my downtime, like 100% of it is devoted to my daughter. And if you can consider that downtime, I try to work as little as possible whenever we get to hang out together, and I see her, pretty much every day. Her mother and I aren't together, but I see her pretty much every day. And then on the days that I have certain days blocked out where I'm like, okay, Dad's going to do his best to stay off his phone. We're not going to go to the academy. We're going to hang out and just do us today. So.
Now, I know I'm supposed to ask how many times you've seen High Fidelity with John Cusack and Jack Black. Is that like your favorite movie, or is there an inside joke there?
No, I mean that's a Jimmy inside joke. But yeah, I have seen that quite a bit. When we lived together, I drove him crazy watching that movie. But I've seen it quite a bit, probably about half as many times as I've seen Fight Club, and I've seen that about 80 times or so. So yeah, it's.
Well, man, what about social media or website? Do you have an online presence you prefer?
Yeah, I don't prefer any of them. I hate social media, but I'm on it so much. I unfortunately have a lot of social media avenues and everything. That's nothing against my friends that I have on social media, just to be clear. But I have a Facebook. My Facebook is just Eli Knight. I don't even know how you look it up. I guess it's Eli Knight or Knight Jiu-Jitsu is where you can pretty much find me. My website has links to all my social media at knightbjj.com. Let's see, Knight Jiu-Jitsu or Eli Knight 174 on Instagram. What else? And then of course my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Eli Knight 173. I don't know. Any of those you can look up Knight Jiu-Jitsu, and I think I'm going to be what pops up.
Now, Eli, I don't want to keep you on the phone much longer, but I always give the guest a chance to say something to the listeners before we wrap things up. Is there anything you would like to say to anyone out there who might be interested in taking that first step in their journey of learning Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, just it's a daunting and intimidating thing sometimes. I would say, do your research, find a good qualified source. If you find somebody online who's a good qualified source that you trust or think that they have a good opinion, contact that person, even if they're not near you, and then see if they can help lead you, in that kind of journey too. Find a place to train that, the sport is great. The competition aspect is fun, and I think it's a very important part of it. But you really need to do true Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. You need to have the self-defense element. You really need to focus on the fighting aspects of it, not just the sportive aspects of it, and vice versa, I think. But that would be the first thing that I would say. And I'm always willing to help. I get questions like that all the time about people are like, I don't know where to go in my area to train. Can you give me any advice? And that's kind of what I tell them. And Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is a fantastic martial art. It's difficult, especially with the ubiquity of social media. It's hard to decipher sometimes through the bull crap about what is a good thing to train and what's not a good thing to train. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is a solid martial art that's proven itself over the years. There's other great martial arts, and then there's a bunch of crap out there too. So just be careful, buyer beware, look for qualified sources of instruction, and really make it a part of your life. Really, make it, if you're going to pursue it, don't do it halfway. Really get in there and train and take it seriously.
Well, Eli, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today, man. Thanks for taking time out to do it.
Absolutely, man. It's my pleasure too, Robert. Thanks for having me.